Hello, welcome to our webinar. My information was breached. What now? I'm Scott Cook and I'm the Communications Director here at the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. And as always, we do a quick disclaimer. This presentation is not meant to serve as a substitute for reading the various laws discussed, seeking legal counsel, or otherwise requesting department guidance and/or interpretations on the laws it administers and enforces. The presentation merely serves as an introduction and overview. And it's kind of important today because we will kind of briefly discuss some privacy laws and things like that, things that are in place. But again, I'm not an attorney, so we're not going to get too much into those details, and I can't give you legal advice on that, but it is worth kind of note that this is just an introduction and overview of these topics. And we're going to give you a quick roadmap before we get started. We'll do an introduction to our agency, let you know a little bit about us. We'll go over some security breach numbers. The numbers that we're going to look at are the numbers from 2023, so we'll kind of look at that a little quickly and kind of show you what type of issues we see and kind of how big of the problem it is here in South Carolina. And as always, we like free tools that you can use to prevent problems, especially when it comes to identity theft, scam prevention, things like that. So we'll have some free tools that you can use to protect your information. And then we'll kind of do a quick recap with some main takeaways. I don't always think about cybersecurity, but when I do, it's usually too late. And we kind of want to tell you guys, don't be this guy. Now's the time to kind of think about these things, about what type of information you're putting out of there, what type of information you're giving to companies that you're dealing with, both in person and online, perhaps. A lot of times when we go to a doctor's office or something like that, you give a lot of information to, and a lot of times when you fill out forms for something online, you may be giving them a lot of different types of information about yourself. We want to look at those types of things, but we also kind of want to look at the types of actions that we're doing ourselves, what we're doing and how we're putting ourselves at risk. So think about cybersecurity before it's too late. And today we'll kind of be talking about security breaches, and we want to kind of start by giving you a little bit of in general information about a security breach. And what we're talking about is unauthorized access to and taking of things that have personal identifying information, which we sometimes just call PII. And the illegal use of the PII has occurred or is reasonably likely to occur. So when we say that, when we talk about PII, we're talking about things like social security numbers, driver's licenses. It may even be financial account information, like your credit card or debit card information, your passwords, things like that. So it can kind of be a large number of things, but it's those things that can kind of have detrimental harm done to you if those information is out there, like your social security number. You don't want to just post that out or give that to anybody, given that it can be used for a lot of things. So, that's kind of the types of things that we're talking about. And it's kind of important to note too, that just because a security breach has occurred, doesn't necessarily mean that identity theft has occurred. And we'll probably say that a couple of times as we get going through, but, in this case, you don't want to have that information out there. So that's a lot of what we'll be talking about today. And it's important to note that state agencies and businesses who keep these types of information, they're required by law to notify consumers when there is a security breach. And one way that they do that is they notify the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. And so when there's a breach of 1,000 South Carolinians or South Carolina residents, a company or an organization is required to notify the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs and the National Credit Reporting Agencies. So that's going to be your companies like TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, those three major ones. And again, they're required by law to do that when there's 1,000 South Carolina residents or more in a breach. And sometimes business may notify us, if that 1,000 consumers number that hasn't been reached, they may still notify us, and that's perfectly fine. We have a good bit of businesses that will do that, but they are required to notify the resident. So that's kind of important to mention as well. They are required to notify the resident when that security breach has happened. And one thing they'll do is they'll send us those notices again when it's 1,000 people or more. And you can find that information by going to our website, consumer.sc.gov, and you'll look for that identity theft scams tab there that I have circled in red. And underneath it, you'll see that little security breaches section. So that's where you'll go whenever, if you're wanting to find more information about security breaches, or if you're wanting to look at breach notices that have been sent to our department, you'll go to that section. So if you kind of hover over that identity theft scam section, you'll see that will drop down with the security breaches section that kind of pops up out of that. And I have a direct link to that part of our website here in the slides. So if you've downloaded the slides for today, you'll have this direct link in there. I'm just going to click it real quick. It will pull that up, and as I said, it's kind of a good website to have because you can get that educational material there. Excuse me. And you'll also be able to look directly at these notices. And I don't want to call anybody out, but you can look and you can see, the name of the organization, the date that the breach was reported to SCDCA, and you can see how many residents were affected by that breach. And if you click the name of that company there, in most cases, it will take you directly to what that security breach notice looks like. So if you're getting something in the mail and you're not really sure that it's a legitimate notice and you kind of want to double check some of that, you may want to go to our website. You can click that notice that we have on our website, and then you can kind of double check it and make sure that all the information matches up, and it should look exactly like it or fairly similar. So again, that website link is in the handout. So if you have that, you can take a look directly at that for yourself. And kind of the types of industries that we see with this, we have them kind of categorized into a few things. It's anything from like education, your school systems, your colleges. I know there's sometimes school districts, like public school districts or whatever, that are affected. And sometimes they're, honestly, sometimes they're even out of state, but they will notify us because, there's South Carolina residents at that college or whatever. So they may notify us that there are a certain number of students or former employees or whoever, but they were South Carolina residents and they may be affected. So education, financial institutions. And again, those financial institutions can be anything from your bank, service, investment companies, credit cards, things like that. Government agencies, we get notices about government agencies, either local, county, municipal governments, some state agencies, sometimes federal agencies. So government agencies, again, they're also kind of required by law to do the same types of things as any other organization. So they may send us those notice of security breaches. And you'll have health organizations like your hospital, doctor's office, medical sales, pharmacies sometimes, or insurance companies, things like that. That's what we consider with health industry. And, as you can imagine, they have a good bit of information about you and a lot of different types of things that they may have stored about you. So they're often a target of these types of, security breach attacks and things like that. Hospitality organizations are another that we have a category here, and that's things like hotels, restaurants, things like that. And we do have another, we have retail, but we also, and that's going to be your clothing stores, online stores, things like that. And we sometimes will have things that fall in a other category that's, just kind of anything that doesn't fall into those 6 that you see right there. We also kind of want to talk a little bit about the types of information that may be breached and kind of what cyber criminals may be looking for. And of course, we already talked a little bit about that personal data, and that could be things like your tax ID number, social security number, things like that. Maybe a driver's license number, just any of those types of things that kind of are personal to you and are used in a lot of different important, forms and things that you may send out. Financial data, of course, and that's going to be things like your debit card number, your credit card number, any financial transaction, things like that, bank statements, again, financial data. We've got credential data, and that's things like your personal email, your account username, account passwords. That's another type of thing that these cyber criminals may be looking for. Health data, we kind of mentioned a little bit earlier, your medical charts, some of that treatment info, test results, These health organizations have a lot of different types of information that they may have about you, and some of that information is sometimes included in these types of data breaches. And we have a little bit of stats here. I don't want to get too kind of bogged down because, I can talk about this for a long time probably, but, I want to give you just kind of a quick overview of the type of problems that, are out there. And these are 2023 numbers where there were 139 breaches reported, and these are the ones reported to the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs. And it had an effect of 3,259,740 individual breach reports. And I kind of say it that way, and it's kind of important to know that these are, the consumers affected, but the same person could be impacted multiple times in those. And that's just simply because, if my mortgage company per se were to be breached, that might be one of those reports, and then another breach could happen if I have my data in like a restaurant app or something like that, and it's impacted. So, we all do business with a lot of different companies, so we all have kind of that risk of being breached multiple times or several times. So that's kind of why we say, it could be the same person multiple times. We don't really have a way to know that. We don't get a list of, the individuals impacted. We just get that number. So that's kind of why we say it could be the same person multiple times. And I want to give you kind of a quick look at how that broke out in those little categories that we mentioned briefly there a few minutes ago. With financial, health, and hospitality, those were kind of the ones with the most consumers impacted in those. And it's kind of broken down a little bit. We had 62 breaches in 2023 involving those financial institutions. Again, that right there is 1.5 million. Just kind of round that there. But then with health, again, those are a lot of those medical pharmacies, things like that, 32 breaches, impacting about 710,000 people. But the thing that I find kind of interesting with this is, we also had the hospitality industry that only had 5 breaches, but that impact was pretty large. We had 778,000 people impacted by just those 5 breaches. And again, that could just be because you're putting a lot of information in these types of websites or apps or, things like that. And it could be hotel chains, it could be, resorts, it could be restaurants, those types of things. If they're saving that credit card information or those usernames, those types of things, if you're providing all that in an app or website or whatever, that information, if it's being stored, it could potentially be, one of these types of breaches. And while we didn't see very many in that industry or that category, it did have a large breach. And that's just kind of a reminder that these breaches can vary largely depending on, the company that was attacked or breached and how many people were impacted in that specific breach. It could be anywhere from just a few, or it could be, thousands. So it's just kind of, it varies from case to case. And so a lot of the things that we always like to talk about here at the South Carolina Department of Consumer Affairs are just those free tools and ways you can protect yourself and your personal information. We've got a couple of these that we'll go through. And I don't want to say we're starting with the most complicated, but we're probably starting with the one that takes the most time to kind of go over. Here are the first couple of tools, and those are the fraud alert and the freeze. And when I'm talking about the fraud alert, I'm talking about your credit report. You can put the fraud alert on your credit report. So you'll go to those credit reporting agencies, again, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian. Those are the ones that would have the fraud alert. So that's kind of the type of thing that we're talking about here. And you would contact them, and it would last 1 year when you put the fraud alert. So if you think your security breach has impacted you, you would want to put a fraud alert that would last a year in this case. And basically that's just going to alert businesses that are looking at your credit report and let them know that they want to take extra steps to verify your identity before, giving, a new line of credit or something like that. And with the fraud alert, you're only going to have to contact one of those credit reporting agencies. So you would contact either TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, let them know that you want to place a fraud alert. You just place it with that one agency and they will notify the others. And there is an extended fraud alert that you can place if you are the victim of identity theft, and that's going to last for 7 years. But if you're just doing this one here, this is the one that lasts 1 year. But there is an option if you are identity theft victim to do 7 years. And we also want to talk a little bit about the freeze. And this is a great tool that anybody can do, and I highly recommend doing this. This will be a great protection against identity theft, especially if there is a breach of some sort that your data is out there. And again, it's free to place or it's free to lift. So it's a great tool that anybody can put in place. And basically it's going to stop somebody from accessing your credit report. And that includes you. You're not going to be able to open up a new line of credit in your name while this freeze is in place. But again, you can lift it or thaw it out. If some situation comes up and you need to, get a new line of credit, if you need a new credit card or a new loan, like a car loan or home loan, something like that, you will be able to do that. And you can thaw it out, like I said, whenever you want to apply for new credit, anything like that. And you will have to place this with each of the 3 credit reporting agencies. So you'll have to go to their website or call them and let them know. I think you can also do it by mail, but you'll want to let them know that you can you want this freeze in place. And the reason I say you want to do this, I know I've had this happen with me where I had a freeze in place and it actually, it does what it's supposed to do. Somebody tried to open a new credit card in my name. I got that notice right away from one of the credit reporting agencies, and it basically was, hey, we stopped this new line of credit from being opened because you have the freeze in place. So we've stopped this. And again, if it was me, I would have been able to go in, thaw that, and been able to go through those steps and allow that to happen. But since I did not try to do that, it's doing what it's supposed to do. And we're going to give you a little bit more information about the freeze. Again, it's available to anybody, and you can submit it with each of the credit reporting agencies. So again, TransUnion, Equifax, Experian, you'll have to go either to their website, you can do a certified letter, email, telephone, and we have a little bit of info here. Basically, they have to place it in 1 business day if you do by telephone or email, 3 business days if you do it by mail. We have the numbers crossed out there because there was recently, or a few years ago, a change in the law. It used to be 5 days, but now those are 1 day by telephone, email, 3 days if by mail. If you have a freeze in place, within 5 days, the credit reporting agencies must send you written confirmation of the request to freeze, and they're going to provide you a PIN or a password, kind of way to remove that freeze or to thaw it. And they're going to send that to you again. They're going to send you a written confirmation of that request. And while it's in place, they will also put a kind of notice on your credit report that it's frozen. And so that's when you pull it up yourself. If you go to those websites, you'll be able to pull up your credit report, and it's going to have a big thing at the top of it that says it's frozen. And again, that's just kind of part of that to let you know that it is frozen, and that at that time, people aren't going to be able to pull your credit report and kind of look to see if you qualify for a loan or anything like that. And it's kind of worth noting that you can still access your credit report, but other people will not be able to. But when you pull it up, it will say frozen. And I think a lot of the websites at that spot will kind of give you the instructions to thaw it if you need to. But again, that's going to be noted pretty clearly on that credit report, especially online, that it is frozen. And again, if you need to thaw it, you can do so by email, telephone, mail. You can also do it on your website. The helpful thing is you can do it for a specified time. I know I had to do this myself not too recently. I had a situation where I need to purchase a new car, kind of wasn't planned, anything like that. So I had a specific time frame that I was looking at. I think I gave myself a few days to say, I know I'm going to go during these days and look for a new car. So just went to the websites for those credit reporting agencies. I put the thaw in there, and during those days I was able to go get my car loan, and then at the end of that time the freeze went back into place. So you can kind of set that up as a specified time, or you can lift it all together. And again, to lift it, you would just do kind of that same thing, either email, telephone, website, kind of whichever you prefer works best for you. If you do it by phone or email request, it can take an hour, or they're supposed to be able to, lift it or thaw it within that hour. And it's 3 business days if you're doing it by mail. So just kind of keep that in mind. So you kind of plan that out accordingly, so you're, not sitting in the office waiting for a loan to go through or something like that and realize, oh, it's going to be another 2 days before it's lifted or thawed. So, you'll just kind of want to plan that out a little bit if that's the situation you're in. And there are additional protections for military members. If you're active military, you can do active military duty alert. And it's going to add a little bit of extra steps in there that businesses have to take. And it's going to add a little bit more protections in there. There will be a time period of 2 years where they remove you from those pre-screened offers, and those are things like those credit card offers, things like that you might get in the mail. But this is something I'm not going to get too much in detail with it, but if you're active duty military, just kind of know there are those federal requirements in there that are going to give you a little bit more protection while you're serving. And again, it's going to be kind of a note on your credit file that's happening. They're going to do free credit monitoring for you. That will give you a notification by mobile app, email, or text if there's changes to your credit file. So that would kind of help you be aware of anything that changes with your credit report while you're gone, or your credit files. That might be a change of address, payments that are 30 days late, if there was some reason of bankruptcy or foreclosure or anything like that, or even new accounts open in your name. So those are things that are going to be in place there for active duty military members that are available to you. And again, we've got a little bit of information about protecting your child's identity. We have a lot of this information on consumer.sc.gov and in the pamphlet that I've attached. We've just got a couple slides on this, but if you have a child and you're worried about, identity theft of a child of yours, or, incapacitated adult as well, you can download that slide or go to our website. We have a lot of this information too. I know we kind of go over a lot of these things quickly, but these are going to be things that you can do. Again, you should be able to put in a freeze or, on the credit file for, we word it as protected consumer, but it would be a protected consumer's credit file when it involves a minor under 16 years old. And I believe 16 is kind of the age they do with this, because they know a lot of teenagers may be getting a job and doing things like trying to get onto a cell phone plan, things like that, trying to establish credit at that early age. So 16 is kind of the age that they do for this. And we know, unfortunately, child identity theft can happen. There's a lot of different ways it can happen. Security breaches are one of those. So it's just kind of something to keep in mind. And it works kind of the same way as the freeze on anybody else's credit report, and you would need to contact each one of those credit reporting agencies to place that freeze. And they'll give you kind of the way to go through that. They're going to send you information to confirm the request. Got a little bit of additional steps in place to authenticate that it's you, and that's just kind of in place to protect that other person. Since it's not you directly, they are going to give you kind of things you got to do to authenticate that it is your child, or that you have the right to put this in place for someone else. So just kind of keep that in mind as you could do these things, that it is a little bit more involved with the protected consumer situation like this. So just kind of keep that in mind. And we'll also say part of the steps that you may want to do is kind of checking to see if there's a credit report for that child. And kind of one of the steps with that would be they'd have to do a manual search of it. And again, you're dealing with somebody who in theory shouldn't have a credit report. So if there is a credit report, that may be a sign of identity theft, that somebody is using that child's name, social security number, things like that to create accounts or get loans, things like that. So that's one of those signs, is if there is this kind of active credit report for someone who's that young, that identity theft has happened. And again, those credit reporting agencies can do that manual search and kind of see what's going on with them. Each agency of those credit reporting agencies, they all kind of have a little bit different processes that they do with this. So again, like I said a minute ago, just kind of keep that in mind. There may be some written requests that you have to do with that, but you can contact each one of those individual credit reporting agencies and kind of see their steps for this. And again, we have a lot of that in that little pamphlet that we have attached. And kind of the place that we always tell people to go to when we're talking credit reports, creditreport.com, annualcreditreport.com. We'll have to word out there. We've also got the phone number on the screen for you, but they're going to give you one free credit report each week, and that's from each one of those credit reporting agencies. Used to be once a year that they would do this. Since the pandemic, they kind of changed their policies on their own. They're kind of going a step above what the law requires, but one free credit report from each one of the agencies every week. You probably don't need to check it every week, but we definitely recommend checking it once or twice a year at least. That's kind of the minimum, checking it once a year. But make sure you're doing that, and you're going to want to look at what kind of things are on there, making sure it's accurate, making sure that each account on there is yours. If there's dollar amounts listed, for those loans and things like that, make sure it's what you think it should be. And again, review it once a year. It's not going to give you your credit score, but it will have that list on that credit report of all those active accounts. And if it's got some previous accounts, it should tell you if they're closed, things like that. And again, we send people to annualcreditreport.com because it is free and it's authorized by federal law. Again, they're required to give you this free credit report at least once a year. They're doing it every week right now. And again, we've got all these phone numbers here individually, and some of the websites. A lot of the things that we just talked about are on those links. So this is a pretty helpful page on the presentation. You can click that link and it will take you to each one of those. So if you're looking to do a freeze or the fraud alert, and click those links and it will give you those steps to take those processes. Another thing we tell folks to do is to create a My Social Security account. It's the official government website that lets you manage your Social Security benefits. And we tell people, even if you're not close to getting a Social Security check, you want to go ahead and set up your account. And you want to do it before somebody else does it. So if your information is out there in a security breach, something like that, those Social Security numbers and your address, things like that, that kind of tie you to that number, they may be out there. So you can go to that website, ssa.gov/myaccount. You can go there and create your account. I know I've done it myself. I'm pretty far from being able to get Social Security, but you can go in there, create that account. And again, you want to just kind of do that before somebody else is able to do it and able to kind of start taking funds and doing things with your account before you do it. And we have some free kind of monitoring tools that we like to remind folks about. Easy one that's easy to do on any kind of financial account pretty much that you may have is setting up those account alerts. And those are going to be those things, that might tell you if you're spending a certain dollar amount, or if you're making online purchases, or if your account falls below a certain dollar value. You may be able to set it up that way. Depending on what type of financial account you're dealing with, there may be a lot of different options. So kind of look at what account alerts your financial companies have, your bank, your credit card, debit card, those things, and just kind of see what account alerts they have and kind of what fits your situation. I know I have ones where if it's online purchases, I get notified. If it's purchases over a certain dollar amount, I get notified. So those are pretty helpful tools you can get just to make sure that somebody doesn't have access to your account and using money that you don't intend them to use. We also encourage you to set up those login protections, things like two-factor authentication. I'll probably mention this again here in a few minutes, but it's, again, just kind of an extra set of defense to keep hackers out of your account. If they have your passwords for some reason, it will give them another step that they have to get to before they can access that account. So, we like to tell people it makes it twice as safe. So just another kind of free tool to keep in mind. And we like to tell people, make sure you're using a strong, unique password. We didn't really say this, but if you're a victim of a security breach, you may want to, I highly encourage you, go in and change those passwords. If your account for financial institution or whatever, your health facility or whatever, if they've been breached, go into that account, change your password. Do it as soon as you can, because somebody else may have access to those types of things. So you want to go in and change it, before they start using it. And we tell people to use at least 12 characters. I know a lot of people say use 18, just kind of the general rule is longer is better, right? So as many characters as you can think of to put in a password, use them, make them longer. Again, longer passwords generally the easiest way to increase the strength. And we tell people use combination of upper, lowercase letters. You want to consider using symbols, numbers, all those types of things. Again, the more kind of variety you have, the better. And kind of the thing that a lot of cybersecurity experts say is use random. Don't use common words, phrases, things from your personal life, like your dog, your maiden name, things like that. So again, any kind of thing you can do to give it a variety, that will make it a little bit stronger. And one thing you may want to do is consider a password manager. If you're like me, you can't remember them all, especially we tell people, use unique passwords for every account. You don't want somebody to get into one account and have access to a lot of your accounts. So password managers, good option for that. The link we have here is one of our partners, staysafeonline.org. They've got a pretty good link here on different kind of things to consider when you're looking at password managers. So it may be a good resource for you if you're kind of on the fence, don't know where to start with a password manager. And again, I think they've got a lot of the tips that we have here about passwords listed on that site as well. So that's a pretty good link to have for you. Again, if you've downloaded the PDF of the presentation, you'll be able to click that and go to that link and check out their kind of guidelines for password managers. Again, we talk about two-factor or multi-factor authentication, and it's just kind of that extra thing you need to do to be able to log into your account. We have it separated kind of by two categories, something you have or something you are. When we talk about something you have, it's the thing like the passcode. You might get it sent to you in a text message or an authentication app, or it might even be a security key that you put into your computer or whatever. But that's going to give you that second set of numbers besides the password to get into those accounts. I know I like to use the face scan myself. That's kind of that something you are category. And, we like to tell people just kind of find something that you're comfortable with. I know I wasn't comfortable with the fingerprint when they first rolled those out on iPhones. I don't know why, couldn't really tell you. For some reason, I did not like the fingerprint option. So that wasn't something I like to do, but I don't mind the face recognition that they use on it. So, just find something that works for you and use it. It's just kind of important to put that second step in there to keep people out of your accounts. We also kind of want to remind you a little bit about security questions, safety. Those are those things that, if you forgot your password, something like that, they may give you those security questions to be able to get into your account. Or sometimes sometimes security questions are part of that multi-factor step with some things. So just kind of keep those in mind. Sometimes the questions may be something that's available in public records or something that you may be posted online on social media. So just kind of keep that in mind and be mindful of what you're posting online in that regard. We tell people avoid those questions like your zip code, your mother's maiden name, birthplace. And again, a lot of times it's just things that we may post on Facebook and not even think about it. So just keep that in mind as you're looking at those security questions. We've got a little bit more information here, kind of about not giving all your information away. If you're using a company and they're asking for information or data that you don't feel comfortable sharing about, don't shop there. If they're asking you way too much personal stuff, too many things that you think may be a security risk, you don't have to shop there. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're online and looking at things. You can also only fill out the required fields. If they're giving you a lot of questions that you don't necessarily have to put an answer for, don't put the answer. And that just kind of helps you keep a lot of data from being out there. We also tell people, try not to save your payment information, in your profiles, things like that. If somebody were to hack, one of your online shopping accounts and all of your credit card information is stored in there, guess what? They now have a shopping spree they can do. So just kind of keep that information in mind and don't give it all away. We kind of want to do quick little main takeaways section here, kind of reminding you of some of the things we've talked about and steps you can take. Again, but when we talk about this type of stuff, it's important to note that no security method is 100% safe. That's kind of the same for individuals and for businesses. Unfortunately, we may all be doing the right things and somehow, cyber criminals still get access to this information. So just kind of no security method is 100% safe, but there is good, better, best kind of tactics that you can do. And we should be kind of combining all these things, all these different security measures as much as possible. So again, the more things you're doing, the better you are. And again, just because you get a security breach notice in the mail, or in the email, whichever way they're kind of contacting you about that, it doesn't necessarily mean you're a victim of identity theft, but it does mean you should kind of start taking those actions to protect your accounts and monitor your accounts and be mindful of what's out there and how it may be used. Again, you'll want to take these steps to prevent damage from happening. We tell people all the time it's easier to prevent than it is to take action once it's happened. So if you're getting these breaches, that's kind of the time to take these actions before your information is being used. And if you forget the rest, consider a security freeze, fraud alert. Again, those pamphlets that we have, the How to Prevent Identity Theft one, that's got a lot more information in that can really help you. I know we kind of just glaze over a lot of these things, but it's got a lot of those information. It's got those direct links. You can go in, put that security freeze in place. That's a great thing you can do even if you haven't been the victim of a breach or identity theft. You can put that freeze in place, so then when it does happen, or if it does happen, you're kind of already got that step of protection on there. And you'll want to monitor your statements. Again, those are you can do the different variety of things. You can put those account alerts in place. Also kind of look at your bank statements, things like that. Also look at your credit reports, just kind of know what's there, what's supposed to be there, and make sure it's all right. And we tell people defend against scams. Don't click on everything that you get in your email, your text messages. If you're like most people I talk to, you're probably getting more of them in your text messages these days than you do anywhere else. Just kind of know those things are easy to be faked. If you're getting notices about accounts, things like that, know they're legit before you click anything. You can always go directly to those financial institutions or whoever is supposedly sending you that alert, and just kind of making sure that it is you before you, or those messages are them before you do anything about it. Don't just trust the initial message that comes in on your phone. And we've got a little bit more information on the next slide. I'll give you about this. If you're interested in a monitoring service, you can do so. A lot of times things that they're looking at are those credit reports, things like that, information that you probably have access to that is free that you can look at in your credit report, but there are monitoring services that, will kind of look over those and kind of send you email alerts or text message alerts whenever anything changes. That may be something you want to look into. I know a lot of times when there's a breach, they'll kind of offer that part of monitoring service for free for like a year or extended time. This is something you can keep in mind as you get that. And again, we have a little bit more information about those in the How to Prevent Identity Theft pamphlet. And this is kind of what that looks like. Again, it's got a lot of that information that we've gone over. One of the helpful things with that one is it's got all that contact information again, about security freezes, fraud alerts, all that. You can just click those direct links. It's got all the phone numbers right there. So it's a great tool to kind of have, be able to go through, see what you might want to do. And if you think you've been a victim, you can call SCDCA, again, our phone number right there on the screen is our 800 number, 800-922-1594. Again, that number is only for South Carolina phone numbers. So we've got our other numbers on our website as well. So if you're using a number that doesn't have a South Carolina area code, that 800 number will not work, but you can also go to consumer.sc.gov as well. And on our website, we have Identity Theft Toolkit that you can look for, just kind of what you need to do if you are the victim of identity theft. Again, you can file an identity theft report with our agency, and somebody from our identity theft unit can look over that and kind of walk you through that. They have a checklist that they go through and kind of help you make sure you're doing all the things with all your accounts that you might need to do. And just kind of, a lot of times, we're in a panic when these things happen. So it's kind of helpful to have somebody who can go through that and say, have you, done this? Have you done that? And it's just kind of that good reminder of, going through that list and making sure you've done all the things to protect your accounts. And again, everything that we do is free. And we've got a lot of those guides that we've talked about, the Identity Theft Prevention Guide, our credit report guide, Ditch the Pitch is our great scam prevention guide. We're in the process of updating that one right now, but we have our current version of that online, and it's just kind of a general scam prevention thing that kind of goes over a lot of different types of scams and kind of the red flags and things to look out for as you're out there. We appreciate you joining us today, but we hope you have a good Wednesday, have a good rest of your day, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you.